Here's a question. Are you a comic book reader or are you a comic book collector? Because those are not the same thing. And yeah, if digital comics win, well, it could be a pretty bad time for comic book collectors. And look, I get it. I use digital comics too. But can digital replace what makes comics comics? I mean, honestly, I don't think so, but let's talk about it. So a viewer of the channel and a member over on the Comic Book Guy Club Facebook group posted this question yesterday, and I thought it was a really good question and it would make for an interesting discussion here today. So I wanted to talk to the rest of you guys about it, get your input, and share what I think about this particular topic. And the question, at least I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the important part goes like this. Timothy Jackson says, I was wondering what the general consensus is on buying and reading digitally procured comics, i.e. digital versus physical. He goes on to talk about the cost of physical comics and not being able to afford them and whatnot. And my response initially in that thread or in that question on the Facebook group was, I personally collect physical comics, but I read a lot, not exclusively, but I read a lot of digital comics. So I'm kind of a hybrid in that I like both. I probably prefer physical comics in a lot of ways, especially, again, when it comes to collecting. But overall, I think that digital comics are super convenient, and it makes a lot of sense for me in a lot of cases. Now, the question is, again, which are you? Are you a comic book reader or are you a comic book collector? Because those are entirely different things, and I think that the way that you approach this hobby is going to largely dictate which you prefer and which works best for you. Now, question number one that we have to ask ourselves is, why do we read comic books? Well, I mean, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, it could be to enjoy the story. A lot of people want a good ongoing story. It's episodic. It's kind of like a soap opera sometimes. But yes, this ongoing story in comic books draws, I think, the majority of us into comic books. But number two is to appreciate the art. As a matter of fact, I was watching a Rob Liefeld podcast, a couple of days ago, a few episodes ago, and he talked about how he has a lot of comic books that he owns, that he's purchased, that he has never actually read. He just likes to open them up and appreciate the artwork. Now, I think he's probably a little bit of a different breed. He's a professional artist, so I get why he would like to analyze and to study other artists' work, regardless of the story that's being presented. But I think most of us do like to appreciate the artwork, but I'm going to guess that the story is probably, by and large, what brings us back month after month after month. But yeah, there's probably some other reasons that I'm not thinking of, but I think those are the two big ones. You're either into the stories or you're into the artwork. That's why you read comics. Now, the next question is, why might you collect comics? Now, there's going to be several reasons why you might collect comics. For me, a big one is nostalgia. I try to go back and get the comic books that I used to collect and read when I was a kid. So comics from the 80s and the 90s. That's a really big component for a lot of people. Another one might be for investment and value, speculation, maybe doing a little bit of flipping, trying to make a few bucks, what have you. A lot of people collect comic books for that. Then, of course, there's, I think, the completionist aspect to it, which I'm also susceptible to. Less so susceptible to the investing and flipping side of it, but the completionist aspect of collecting comic books certainly has grabbed me. You want to get every issue of your favorite run from your favorite artists and from your favorite writers. Absolutely, of course. And then, unfortunately, there's probably some other psychological reasons why you might be a comic book collector, or really this could apply to collectors of anything. And unfortunately, some of these might be a little bit negative, but it is what it is. OCD and hoarding and dealing with loneliness and any other number of psychological reasons why you might be drawn to collecting. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of reasons why you might be drawn to comic books and collecting. And the truth of the matter is that while, again, I do use and I do like digital comics for what they are, the convenience and the cost and everything else, you can't collect them. You don't own anything. And that might be the most important aspect of this that people often overlook, is that When you don't buy a physical comic book, you don't physically own anything. It can be, and maybe someday will be, taken away from you if all you own is a digital license to a particular comic book or group of comic books. And that's a little scary if you think about it. Now, like I said, I'm a hybrid collector. I like laying in bed with the lights off with my iPad and reading comic books before I go to bed at night. And before you say like, oh, you shouldn't be looking at screens before you're going to bed, I can read comic books for 20 or 30 minutes and then boom, I just pass out. I am out like a light. It works for me really, really well. Whether or not it works for you, who can say? But yeah, for me, reading comics on my iPad is super convenient. I don't have to go digging through my long boxes to find the comic I'm looking for. Everything is organized in a digital world, easily accessible, searchable, quickly findable. Cost-wise, it can be extremely more affordable. I mean, for example, Marvel Unlimited, I subscribed to that for a year for, I don't know, $60 or $70, and you get access to tens of thousands of comic books. So that's amazing. So yeah, I am a hybrid collector in that I do really like digital. I find reading digital comics to be really convenient, but you do not get the experience that is a physical piece of paper bound together with other pieces of paper that you can handle and feel and smell. We all know, older comics in particular, there's something special about that experience. That's the bottom line. And that's why I will always be at a minimum a hybrid collector, if not exclusively a physical collector. I mean, who knows in the future? Maybe something happens with digital. Maybe the prices get too high or something else happens where I reject digital. But I don't imagine that I'm ever going to reject physical comics. So what are the pros and cons for physical versus digital comics? And I touched on some of them, but let's really go over them. Number one, for digital, a con is, again, you don't own anything. So you could pay for it. Well, it depends if you're paying or if you're renting. Like a platform like Marvel Unlimited, you're kind of renting. You don't buy anything. So in that case, you really, truly don't even own licenses. But if you go on Comixology/Amazon and you buy a license to a book, it can and maybe someday will get taken away from you, even though you spent a few bucks for the license for that title. That's a big, big con for digital. Pros for digital, of course, are that widely distributed, instant access, ease of access. I mean, that's huge. Don't have to ship heavy books all over the world. It makes a lot of sense. The other thing that I really think physical comics do much, much better than digital is digitals are often like color retouched. They're often not presented the way that the creator intended. And if you want to view the artwork in the way that the creators intended it to be viewed, more often than not, you need to have physical, printed on paper comic books. That's the way that it was intended to be consumed. So yeah, you want to view this artwork the way that the creators intended. And I think that's important. And that is one of the main reasons why I still like physical. Now, of course, with physical, you own something and you can sell it in the future. Even if it's for a loss, there's usually always some value, but oftentimes it can be for a profit, and that's a big deal. So yeah, having the ability to trade or sell your books up and away towards something else, whether it's more books or whether it's something else in your life, that's kind of huge. And again, even if it's at a loss, something is certainly better than nothing. Now, there's a ton of pros and cons to both of these platforms, whether we're talking about physical or digital. And what I'd like to do is ask you guys to tell me in the comments below, do you prefer digital? Do you prefer physical? And what are your pros and cons to each of these different formats? What do you like about them? And what do you dislike about them? I'd love to hear it in the comments below. So this was a really interesting thing that someone brought up that I wanted to kind of just talk about briefly here and get your guys' feedbacks. And yeah, I think for me, in the immediate future, I'm always going to prefer physical comic books. That experience that you get with handling and opening and again, the smell from a comic book from the 80s and the 70s and the 60s and older, that's something that, I don't know, is nostalgic to me. It's something that I enjoy. It brings me back. It's a little mini time machine that takes me back to my younger years, and that has a value that is almost immeasurable. Now, with modern comic books, you don't get that as much. Certainly not the smell. Modern comic books just smell like paper. I mean, you could open a ream of printer paper and get the same experience. But there is still the feel, the tactile feel of holding and opening and flipping through a comic book that, I don't know. I just don't get on digital. I know some digital platforms have like the guided panel thing that gives you that sort of page flippy feel. To me, I don't know. I don't like that so much. But what I do like is being able to pinch and zoom and be able to see everything better and to have more consistent quality. I mean, for example, you could buy a comic book that's 30, 40, 50 years old. Pages are faded, the ink is faded, maybe some of the words have faded and it can't even like read certain things, or it's a little bit more difficult. You won't necessarily or very often run into that sort of problem with digital. Usually the quality is very, very consistent on older books. But with newer books, probably doesn't really matter either way. Suffice to say, though, that while I do participate in the digital realm and while I do like it and I do find it convenient, it will never replace physical comics for me. And then, of course, there's, the thrill of the hunt. It's why we're going to MegaCon this coming weekend. It is to go out and hunt for physical comics, to find those gems in the wild. There is something truly enjoyable about that you just can't get with digital. With digital, it's just, I want that instantaneous boom. It's on my iPad. Now I can read it and look at it. Yeah, you can't get the feel of the hunt, the thrill of the hunt, as they say. With digital, I don't know. Hopefully someday they never try to do that. I mean, they could do like, blind packs where you pay $1 and you get some random comic. You don't know what you get. God, that would be terrible. Basically loot boxes for comic books. I hope I didn't just give Marvel, DC, or Image that idea. But could you imagine? Well, they already do it with physical comics. They do blind bag comics now. Same idea, but at least you're getting a physical property when you open a blind bag and pull a comic book out of it. But the thrill of the hunt, the thrill of collecting comic books, for looking for the right issues in the right conditions for the right prices, that is a big piece of the collecting enjoyment for me and for, I'm sure, millions, maybe not millions. I don't know how many comic book collectors there are, but lots of other collectors. That part of it is super, super fun. Again, let me know down in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this topic? I wanted to keep this one pretty quick and just talk about it for a little bit because I thought it was an interesting question that someone posted. So with that said, I'm going to wrap this one up for today. Let me close this one out by saying, as I always do, please keep watching our videos. Go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We would really appreciate the support. We need you guys to get on board here and help us grow this channel. So please keep watching our videos and help us out with that sub. Number 2, keep supporting local comic book stores if you've got them. Keep reading comic books because the industry as a whole needs you as much as I need you for this channel. So yeah, get that support out there to the comic book industry, the creators and the stores. And finally, until the next one, I'll sign off and say bye now.